Hi lovely creative people, this is June from Oakham Witch Lane Designs, and today I'm going to show you how to make polymer clay and liquid polymer clay frames for dollhouse size, or if you want to use it for scrapbooks or even for your home. This burst of creativity that I had was spurred by watching Ara at Bentley House Minis when she was doing a program on her Addams Family house. She was making some portraits for the dollhouse, and when she got up to the frame part, I was watching her paint the portraits. She drew them, she painted them. When she got up to the frame part, I was so excited I started yelling into the computer, I know how to do this, I know how to do this, Aaron. I realized that this was not interactive, which sometimes I forget myself because I am so interested and involved in what is happening on the screen. Now, of course, Ara made beautiful frames for her portraits, and they were just lovely. And she taught me another technique. I watch a lot of YouTubers, um, and basically, even though I'm a polymer clay artist and also a needle felt artist, I watch other videos from other people, especially Ara with the Addams Family and the rest of her items that she makes, just because you learn things from different people. So I am going to be mentioning a lot of different people and links and YouTube channels because I get inspiration from them, and I have contacted all of them and I asked them if I could use their names in their videos. They've all said yes. But that's what the whole artist community is giving inspiration to people and letting them put their own spin on something that they showed us how to do. So I'm going to stop talking and I'm going to turn the camera down, and we're going to start creating some mini frames. Okay, so let's get started. Now, everybody works with a different medium. And by that, I mean that some people work with paper, some people work with wood, popsicle sticks, some people work with paper clay, and even epoxy or resin. Basically, I start, or when I see something, I always think of how to make it out of polymer clay because that's the medium that I use. And what I wanted to do was I wanted to make a little mirror for this little needle felted mouse that I made. Now, the prototype for this was this one here. And it ended up, I thought, maybe just being a tad too big for the scale of the mouse. So I decided to make it a little bit longer. Well, not so much longer, but a little bit narrower. And to get the initial shape, I just Googled an oval. I got this, I printed it out, and then I put this in my copy machine and I reduced it. And after I reduced it on different pieces of paper, I hope you know how to reduce on your copy machine. I reduced it 55%, 50, 45, and 40. And that's because I wanted to make the outside and then the inside where your picture or your mirror would go. After I printed them out, I just took some that glue stick and just glued them on a piece of cardboard. Now I am not using good cardstock for this. I'm just using a piece of cardboard that I threw out. It was from a box. I don't know what this box was from, but just don't use your good stuff on this. Use like a cereal box, anything that comes in a box that's very lightweight. So I decided by looking at this little mouse, even though this, again, this is not the mouse that I'm going to be using for this project because it's going to be a little bit of a ghostly, well, not a little bit, you're either a lot of it, you either are or you're not, a ghost mouse. I felt that the 55 and the 45 would be the right size for a mirror if she's looking in the mirror for my mouse. So, but I couldn't determine that until I did all of this because the 50 looked a little too small. So I kept just going up on my copy machine, reducing the initial oval as I saw fit. So as you can see, I have 4 of them, but nothing's lost because I'm sure I could use these. Okay, so let's get to working. So like I said, I work with polymer clay, and I have a pasta machine. And I didn't roll this out on my pasta machine on the video because my pasta machine is over at my work desk where I normally work, and it's clamped down. But I put it, so what I did was I took some polymer clay and I tried to knead it to get it a little bit soft. I used this, which is just a clay roller, just to try to get it flat so it would go through the machine easier. And I rolled it through quite a few times, maybe about 10 times, first on the thickest setting, and I kept going on the thickest setting, and then I went to a thinner and thinner setting. Now on mine, this was the 4, setting 4, and the thickness of the polymer clay measures out to about a 1/16 of an inch if you want to measure it. Now, I don't have a machine, my machine made for polymer clay. Pasta machines are pasta machines. Mine happened to be my old pasta machine when I inherited my mom's. So I just decided that since my mom's was more of an heirloom than mine, I would keep my mom's, and use that for pasta, and I would use the one I bought for myself for polymer clay. So now you take your clay, and this is a regular floor tile that's very smooth. Put it down on my floor tile, and you're just trying to get it so that there's no air pockets. You could use your clay roller for that. In this particular project, if there is an air pocket on the back side, it's not going to matter as much, but you do want it as flat as possible on your baking tile. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put my 55% down. I am going to take my X-Acto knife, and I am going to cut around, and this is why it's better to put it on cardboard, because it gives you a little bit of a rim to rest your blade on. Now I am trying to hold my blade as perpendicular to the surface as possible without slanting it one way or the other. And sometimes that's a little bit easier or harder than you think. Okay, so just go around. Polymer clay cuts very easily, and just take your time. Keep your blade perpendicular to your surface, and now I went through. Okay, and this lifts right off. Now for this particular piece that we're cutting, this oval, and any other piece that you're going to cut with polymer clay, do not take the excess clay off first, because that's going to be like a little bit of a container to hold your clay there as you're cutting out your inside of the frame. And the reason why I did the outside before I did the inside was because this is easier to line up and figure how to make it as even as possible, because you can see the line. I know you might not be able to see the line. Let me see if I can get, you can see the line of where I cut. And so you can put it in the center. Okay, let's get back down. So, okay, good. So looking at it, I think that looks pretty good. Might move it over a little bit. There we go. Hold it down. Start again. Keep your blade perpendicular to the surface. And perpendicular just means at a 90-degree angle. You don't want to slant your blade because you're not wanting to bevel anything. And if you make a mistake at this stage, it's not such a big deal. You just take your clay off the tile and put it through the pasta machine again. Roll it flat and start all over again. You haven't invested a lot of time in doing this, so it's not a big deal to do that. And I've done that many times myself. Oopsie, okay. Take this off. Now, you want to get the center out first, and it might be a little bit hard. Sometimes if the clay is a little wet, it sticks to it a little bit more than that. And then you want to get your outside off. Okay, so that's done. So now what we're going to do with this, how did this get all crooked? Wow. Okay, sorry guys. Now what we're going to do is take some of this clay and put it in what's called a clay extruder. And I'll show you this in a second. I just need to go and get some liquid polymer clay. I have so many things on this table right now. I didn't even realize that my liquid polymer clay was on my table. But this is liquid polymer clay. This is the transparent one, and it's not really that transparent when there's more than just a very thin layer of it. This one happens to be Fimo. I use Fimo liquid polymer clay in the translucent, and then I'm going to show you the Sculpey ones, Sculpey brand, that I use for the white and the black. Now what I'm doing right now is I'm trying to roll my clay so it fits into my extruder. Ooh, that's going to be fun to say a lot of times. And how this works is almost like a cookie press. You have to screw this so you have some room in here to put the clay. Okay, I think that's enough. Hopefully it is. Maybe a little bit more. Okay. Now I'm rolling my clay to see if I can get it to go in. I do. It can go in. I sort of push it down in there. Take my clay blade. Cut off the excess by just using the rim of the extruder. We're going to have to call this something different. This is just going to be called the clay gun right now, or the clay cookie press. Okay, and now you get all of these little discs that have different holes. They have all different shapes that you can use. These are the two shapes that I'm going to be using for this project. Okay. Now the reason why is the holes on this one that has the 4 holes is the holes are just a tad smaller than the hole that's in here. So I'm just going to double them up, and when the clay comes out of this gun, it's going to be the size of the smaller hole. They didn't have a single disc with the smaller hole, either that or I threw it out by accident. So because the disc that only had one hole in it versus the smaller hole disc that had 3 or 4 in it, it's blocking all the other holes. So only the clay will only come out of this center hole. And then what you do is you twist the back, and as you twist the back, you'll start to see what looks like a piece of spaghetti coming out. Now this gets a little tough to do, but you just go around and around and you get all your spaghetti. Okay, I think that's more than enough. All right. Now, I have a paintbrush that I use only for liquid polymer clay. And I keep it in tin foil because the liquid polymer clay doesn't really dry out unless you bake it. And I just don't want a lot of dirt to get on it because it tracks all sorts of dirt and dust. And this is raw clay and this is raw clay. Normally, you're never going to have a problem trying to put raw clay on raw clay. If this was baked, you'd absolutely need this. But because I just like to add a little bit more stability to the object, I am going to be using the liquid polymer clay just to make sure that this and this stay together. So I am just wrapping this around. My frame. And you say, well, if you're going to be wrapping around more clay around your frame, why don't you just make your frame a little bit bigger? I like the extra detail this gives. I'm giving it like a 45-degree angle cut through both of the layers of the clay. And then I'm just going to try to take it and smooth it a little bit so you can barely tell. Now, once I finish decorating this, you're not going to see that seam. At least I hope not. And with all of the paint and gesso that I'm going to put on this, you probably won't. So now I'm going to do the same thing with the inside. It also just gives it a little bit more of a finished edge. And this is fun. You could make hair out of this. I use these shapes, these circles and shapes a lot when if I'm building a column and I want to put, you know, just decorative molding around things. It comes with a lot of different discs so that you can have a lot of different shapes to have for your clay. Some of it is thicker spaghetti, some of it's real like angel hair spaghetti, and they also have squares, rectangles, sort of a teardrop looking one. It's interesting and it's fun to play with them if you're playing with polymer clay. Again, I just sort of cut it at a 45-degree angle. Now you could be saying, why am I using red? Because this is not going to be the end color. I'm just using red so you have a better visual when I start gluing my other pieces on top of it, so there's more of a contrast. And at the end result also is that I'm going to be gessoing this and making it different colors. So it really doesn't matter with what my basic clay is for the base, because I will be painting it. Now, if you're doing a doll, you would try to use the flesh color as close as possible to how you want it to be end up. Now, this is basic. This is done. But I am going to take this and put it on the side. I'm going to take a little bit of my Fimo liquid polymer clay and just brush it around the seams. Now, if you're not putting these little round spaghettis around your frame, you don't have to do this. You do not have to put the liquid polymer clay. And basically, I don't have to, oops, I said that basically word again. I promised I wouldn't be saying basically a lot this time, but I guess we're going to do it again. I'm just doing this because I want to make sure that they really stick together. Okay, so this is done. Pretty easy. I don't want to press down too hard on all of this because I like the way the shape is. If you see, and then I cover this up because I don't want to get any dust or dirt, and then I put this back in its little tin foil holder. If you see that something doesn't look as round enough to you, you can smooth it out just by pressing your blade around it. And that area looks like it can go up a little bit more. Okay, so now I have my frame. And I'm going to bake this, but before I bake it, I want to talk about the decorative pieces that I'm going to be putting on top of it. Now, these are silicone molds. I purchased these overseas, or across the pond, as they say. YouTube has some strange rules regarding putting links to overseas vendors. So I can't put the link of where I purchased these here underneath this video. But you can message me if you want on Facebook, and I'd gladly give you the link to the vendor that I used to purchase these. I think they're fondant molds. They're very, very flexible, and they're very pretty and detailed. And now I'm going to use some liquid polymer clay, and this is the Sculpey liquid polymer clay, and I have it in both white and black, but I'm going to use the black today to fill in some of these molds. Now, they say that you should, it even says here on the instructions, when using with the silicone mold, heat the mold unfilled for 15 minutes at 275. Then pour into the mold and bake at 275 for 15 minutes. And whenever I use one of my silicone molds, they can go in the oven. There's not a problem with that, obviously. But you definitely want to put on your timer. You really don't want to overbake these, and not because they're going to burn, but just because they're going to get stiff, stiffer than you really want them to. But if you put your timer on, and I do actually try to remember to put my timer on for these, it's fine. So for liquid polymer clay, when I'm using this to fill in molds, the only extra thing besides a paper towel is I use this needle tool sometimes to help me get the liquid PC in the little crevices over here, all the little mold designs. If you don't have a needle tool, don't worry about it. You can use a toothpick. You could use a regular needle if you have a regular needle. So this is pretty easy to do. Is you take it, and I also usually keep it in a jar so that the top is pointed down, so you don't always have to wait for this. And also, when you buy this, it doesn't, you really can't hold on for it for years and years. I think it becomes harder, or when you make the molds and you bake them, the pieces are more brittle. If your liquid polymer clay is very old, so I would try to use this as much as possible, even if you don't have something that you're planning to use these pieces with. I would just keep making them. um, I would say about 6 months. I mean, I don't know what the actual shelf life is, but I would stay within the 6 months zone, because I just think they come out better. When we talk about two-part resin pieces, which I will in a little bit, the epoxy resin should be as fresh as possible. But let me first fix this mold, fill this mold in, and then we can talk about that. Okay, so you just start squeezing the bottle and trying to fill the crevices with your liquid polymer clay. And it's sort of fun or relaxing. I didn't really like doing this at first, but I sort of started to enjoy it. I think the reason why I didn't like doing it at first was because it was something new, and I really just didn't understand how to work with it that well. So I'm just gently squeezing, trying to make sure that the liquid PC gets into all the little crevices. And then I was always afraid that if it got some on the top, that I'd have to try to remove it before I put it in the oven. But now I found a very easy way, and I'm not worried as much about that. You want to try to keep it as neat as possible. You don't want to be too sloppy. But if you do get some on the outside of the mold, it's very easy to get it off. Now, I take my mold and I just bend it a little bit, because sometimes that shows me places, like, I don't know, hopefully, maybe not, that you can see this. I'm going to try to make it, oops, that's too much. Try that you could see. There's a little spot right there that I missed with the liquid polymer clay, so I'm just going to move it with my needle tool. Check out all the other areas, and that seems like I filled that one, maybe a little bit more over there. There we go. I think that's good. I'll do another one. Oops, sorry guys, maybe I should have went back to trying to make it so you can see what I'm doing. Okay, so again, you're just filling in. Now, you're going to be putting this and this on the baking tile in a 275-degree oven for 15 minutes. Take it out and let it cool for about another 15 to 20 minutes. And then you'll take your mold and you're going to run it. Be careful if it's still hot, so touch it first. Take it off the tile and put it under cold running water. And as you're doing that, you can start to rub all these little pieces that aren't a part of the mold right off, and you will get a clean design. So it's very easy. If you accidentally overfill, or if some goes over like that, some of the liquid PC goes over like that, it's very easy to clean off the surface of your mold. All you have to do, like I said, is run it under cold water. Once I'm finished filling it, I just inspect it to make sure that the liquid PC went into all the little crevices. Now, you can buy liquid polymer clay, and I was talking before about it being fresh. You can buy liquid polymer clay at a lot of the craft stores. I buy mine from Polymer Clay Express. And again, if you put my name in the comments, you will get a 10% discount. They will process your order, and then they will issue a 10% refund. I buy mine there because I know that at least when I'm getting it from them, it's fresh. So I'm going to go and put these in my oven. And while I'm waiting for these to bake, I'm going to be talking to you about some of the other frames that I made because I was so inspired. So I'm going to pause it for it. I'll be right back. Okay, I put my timer on, and I have it on for 15 minutes. And I just want to show you some of the other frames that were inspired by Ara at Bentley House Minis. This again was my prototype, and I'm using resin, clear epoxy. What is this called? Clear epoxy resin, UV resin, to try to make a mirror effect. I really haven't gotten that down yet. I've been working on it, and hopefully when I do get it down pat so that I'm happy with it, I will make another video. But let's go see some of the other things I've made. Now, say you want to make a rectangular frame. This is polymer clay. And the reason why it looks so crazy here is because I tried to do it in different steps so you would see the steps that I did. The first step, and this happens to be the ecru clay, was I put the clay down, I rolled it on the pasta machine to about 1/16 inch thickness, put it down, and I cut around to make a rectangular frame, and I made the frame a little bit wider in width. I then took some of this bias tape that I have used on other projects. As a matter of fact, I used it on the witches, and with some matte Mod Podge, I just glued it down. Put some Mod Podge on the clay, put this on, and then went over it again. And then I cut it, put it down here because I like the 45-degree angles over here. I like that look. Did the same thing here and did the same thing here. Once that was dry, I used my clay extruder. Sorry, I kept everything in here in these little buckets so I could show you. I used this, my clay cookie press, and I made a rectangular. This is one of the rectangular discs, and I used that. This is baked already. I tried to bake it just so you could see it. And I placed it around, used some of, now I definitely had to use the liquid polymer clay because this was baked and this was raw clay. So I brushed some on around the edge of the frame, and I put this around, all the way around. Then I used a bigger circle disc, and I put that in right next to this piece, right next to the flat rectangular piece. And then I use the same discs that I used just now, the combination of two discs, to run another little one on the right next to the big circle. Again, using liquid polymer clay to make sure that it's stuck, especially over the bias tape. Then, just to make it look more like a frame, I took my clay blade and I just made like a little indent so that it would look like it was made like a frame, a real frame. And then I baked it again when it came out. So this part is where you can see when it came out after I put these little pieces all around. Then I gessoed it, gessoed this side of the whole part. The sides, well, this side got a little messed up, but that's just because I was cleaning up something. Okay, but you gesso the whole frame. Then I used, and I don't have it here, but I used one of these waxes. Hold on. This one happens to be the brushed iron. I used the vintage gold. I don't know where it is. It was supposed to be in that little bucket. And now, if I was using silver or the brushed iron, I would have left it black. But since I wanted to use the gold, I decided to paint it by just using a little bit of red. Oh, okay, here's where everything is. Hold on. Here's where it is. And the reason why this is the vintage gold, the reason why is, and then this is the red paint that I used. It's just regular craft paint. I went over the whole thing that was in black with the red. The reason why I did it in red was because I knew I was going to do it in gold. And originally, way long time ago, when those faux leaf packets came out, with the silver, they said to put a black gesso on your piece. And for the gold, they sold it in a kit. They told you to use red. So whenever I put gold color, whether it be gold, leaf, paint, I always put it on either a black background or a red background. It's just something I've always done because of those initial kits way back when. Now these metallic wax from Art Alchemy, this is the vintage gold. And this one, like I said before, is the brushed iron. Where I buy these from is an online store called Queen's Craft Fair. And my friends Nikki and Crystal. Nikki is Disorganized Crafter and Crystal is RusticInkAngel Designs. They are the owners of the company. And what I wanted to mention the fact that this is a small frame. They have Prima molds and hold on, let me see if I can get the name of it. They have Prima and Stamperia molds that have these kind of flourishes. They have a wonderful inventory of diverse molds that are bigger. So if you wanted to do this for a bigger project, say you got a very plain frame because they were on sale and you wanted to decorate it and make it very ornate, they have the perfect molds to do this. They also sell a product called aluminite, which is a two-part resin. and it comes in 3 different colors. It comes in black, tan, and white. And I would highly recommend that you get your resin from them. The reason why is because there is a very short shelf life on the aluminite resin, or any resin. When you go into a arts and crafts store and you see clear resin on the shelves, that could be on the shelves for 6 months, a year. You have no idea, and it doesn't work as well as when it's fresh. So if you buy it from them, they don't even stock it in their online store. So it does take a little longer to get to you, because once you order it, they order it from the manufacturer, so that when you receive it, you know that you're getting the freshest resin possible, to make sure that if you're going to put all this work into something, that the items that you're using to create your piece are the best. So I would recommend going to Queen's Craft Fair. It's going to be in the links below, and also Nikki at Disorganized Crafter and Crystal at RusticInkAngel Designs. They're also on YouTube, and they have lots of videos on how to use the resin and how to use the molds. Plus, they're so much fun to just watch them. We have a great time when they're on live. Now, the only other thing I wanted to tell you, and I'm not sure if my camera is going to be able to pick this up. I'm going to try, see if it does. Let's see, come on, let's get on blurry. A little bit more. Is with the bigger center spaghetti that I put down, I used this little tiny tip that had a little circle in it. Now you can't see anything here. It had a little tiny tip of a little circle, and I just went over all of the clay, because I just wanted to give it a little texture before I baked it. So this little strip here that happens to end up being red has just a little bit of texture by just hitting it with a little circle point here. You can texture your clay with all sorts of wonderful things. And this, oh, let me show you. Hold on. I took a picture of my witch, and I just want to show you what a pretty frame that would make. Again, if it was all one color, it would be very nice. But if you wanted to do it in black and white and just keep it black, that's also nice as a picture frame. So you can take pictures of your own work and you can frame them now. Plus, also, when you're doing those scrapbooks and you buy frames, they have beautiful frames, little frames that you can buy, but maybe you have a picture that doesn't fit into that frame, and you really like that picture, but it just doesn't work. Well, now you're going to find another way to do that, to make a frame for those pictures. Okay, so now I have some more things that I made. I told you it was a flurry of creativity, and I tried to line everything up in these little boxes to make sure that I showed you everything that I did. Okay, here's the next one. And this, now if you're a paper crafter, these are dies. These are the nestle dies. Oops, this one came off. Hold on. And I received these because there was a little contest online in Disorganized Crafters Facebook page, and I won these. And I used this one right here to make all the tags that I put on my work. And they have a little stitch design, but when you're using them for other things, I'll show you that you can fill in the stitch design and it doesn't show. Well, when I first got these, one of the first, the thing that I thought they looked like were old gravestones. So I made this frame using these two dies. I used a waffle box that happened to be in my paper recycling. I cut it up and I taped the dies down to make sure that I got this hole here in the right spot, and I made four of them. I then glued them all together, and I put a weight on them so that they would glue, that they would stick and they would remain flat. And then I did, and I don't have it here, so hold on for 1 second. I thought I had everything. Just hold on. I'll be right back. Okay, so I'm back. While running around trying to find everything, the oven timer binged, so I had to go up there and get the polymer clay out of the oven. But getting back to this, I made 4 of these. I glued them together just using some PVA white glue, and when it was done and I put weights on it and it was dry, I took some liquid super glue. Now this tip was a fabulous tip by Heather Tracy. She's Thicketworks. She has tons of YouTube videos and she's just fascinating. I highly recommend also watching her videos, and the next frame is going to show something she inspired. But what she does is on cardboard, she takes super glue, and I don't know if this one, okay, let me see if I can do this for you, just to show you this technique. She puts super glue down on her cardboard pieces, and then she spreads it around using an old gift card. I'm using an old Costco card. Lets it dry, and by the time this finishes drying, it makes the cardboard feel like it's a piece of wood. So she has this fabulous tip with using the super glue. It's absolutely great. Now I want to show you the frame that I finally did get to make using this. Let me just, because I am one to always super glue my fingers together. This is the frame that I ended up making, and this was one of my attempts at making an old looking mirror. So I used the 4 pieces of cardboard glued together, and the first thing I wanted to do was decorate it a little bit. So I used this mold, and I used this piece right here and molded it, and then cut off the bottom, cut it right here, and I put this piece on top over here, and this piece, the bottom piece, over here. Then I took some embroidery floss, the one that I used on one of the witch's hairs, the one that has more of a texture to it. It sort of looks twisted, and I glued it around the edge. And then I took some of these lovely stickers, and these stickers can be bought at One of a Kind Artist Emporium. Again, all of the links will be below. And I just wanted to decorate in here a little bit more, so I put them down. I gessoed the whole thing in black, and then I highlighted with, we call them vanilla smellers because this wax smells so good, the brushed iron, and I just used my finger, best tools you have, and just highlighted all of the pieces that were raised, just to give it a little bit of interest. And then I attempted to make this mirror with the resin that you use the UV light on. I'm not 100% happy with this, but for this piece it's okay. It's all right. It works because I wanted it to look like an old haunted type mirror. But then, oh, let me show you these. Now, if you don't have these stickers, and the stickers come in silver and gold, there's 3 different types of them, 3 different sheets of different designs. But if you don't have them and you have some brass stampings, that you could also use these around. You can cut them because these are so thin, you can cut them and put them around as decorative pieces. Now, the inside of this piece, again, because there was 4 of them, I just decided to make a tombstone with. And I wanted to make it look like old and very worn down. So I took one of these, and I believe, yes, I glued it this way, and I cut off this area and this and just glued it down. And then to get like a raised edge over here, I just took a couple of pieces of paper, cut them the size, and then glued it down onto this piece. And then I wrote out RIP in some dimensional paint that I have. And then I just painted it gray, splashes of paint, little drips of paint, trying to make it look as old as worn as possible. And I have some Tim Holtz. I see now I didn't take that either, but it's a Tim Holtz like embossing powder that I glued down. I didn't even emboss it. I just glued it down, put some PVA glue and sprinkled some of that over it. And green and a lighter green, and trying to make it look like there is moss growing on this. So this was another inspirational frame, and now also a tombstone. And I also want to show you that although these die cuts have that little stitch line around them, by the time you're finished putting in all of your paint, that the stitch lines will be covered up. You don't see them at all. Okay, so we have one more before we continue with our project that I was making. And this one was also inspired by something, videos that I saw on Heather Thicketworks. Which one is this? Hold on, sorry. Okay. And also the people who use popsicle sticks. These are coffee stirrers. And whenever my daughter and I go in and buy coffee, we take the stirrers. Now, I don't need it because I always take my coffee black, but we take them anyway. And I took the stirrers and I just cut them out to make a wooden frame. I don't have 45-degree angles on that, but there is a tool. I forgot what it's called. It's an Easy Cut, I believe. You can get it on Amazon, and that would make 45-degree angles on your wood. If you wanted to make it just plain wood, I'll link that also down below. But on Heather Thicketworks channel, I saw this mold that she used, especially in her secret garden, and I just loved watching the secret garden, all of those videos. Beautiful work. I saw this mold, I wanted to get it, and there's certain molds and for certain things that you want to do that you have to figure out what's the best stuff or medium to put in the mold. Liquid polymer clay, I could probably put liquid polymer clay or the resin in this, but that would be a lot of liquid polymer clay because I would have to do this mold 3 times to get to do this frame. And the epoxy resin, or the 2-part resin, the aluminite sold in the Queen's Craft Fair would probably work also with this. But Heather showed how to use this mold using creative paper clay. Now, I keep my, once I open it, and even before I open it, when I go and buy it, I keep my creative paper clay in a plastic bag in the refrigerator. I just think it keeps it fresher longer. And this is not something that I use a lot, but I do use it for certain things. If I'm building something and I just need a little paper clay for it, you take your paper clay and you lay it down. And this is also, gotta stop saying also, this is a product that you need to figure out how to use. You're trying to get, now other people do this much better than I do. Again, I use polymer clay. I'm sure I could have also used polymer clay here, but I wanted to try to use the same thing that Heather used. And as you can see, I use my clay blade on everything just to get rid of some of the excess. After a while, you figure out how much you should put in. A lot of people know how to use this stuff a lot better than I do. But one way or another, you get your paper clay in your mold. It takes a little bit of finagling. To get the mold correctly. Let's get this stuff in the mold rather correctly. This is again my old clay blade, so it's not as sharp. And I can see that the contrast between the off-white of the paper clay and the gray of the mold isn't showing too well up. Isn't showing well. But one way or another, however you decide to do this, I'm sure I was getting better after I did it a couple of times. But it is a learning curve on how much you put in, how thin you make your little tube, but you'll get there. You play with it a little bit. And then you unmold it. And you get this lovely design. And what I just did was put it down. I just used a little PVA glue, which is basically just white glue, and put it down on the stick. And then cut my 45-degree angle. Made another one of these, made another one, cut it at 45 degrees here and here. So basically I used 3 of these to make this little frame here, which could also be for a picture. And this is a long shot of my witch as a portrait hanging, or it can also be used as for a mirror. Now, once this was dry, I used that red paint again because I knew I was going to make gold. And then I used the wax, and I could have used gold paint. I could have even used the gold leaf on this if I want. I do have gold leaf, but I just wanted to use the wax on this. And you just take it and you keep putting it down into the edges, keep rubbing it in, and it works really very fast and it smells delicious. put it on the sides also. Want to make sure, especially if you're making a mirror, because it'll reflect out, that you have the inside edges done. And now you have, by using some popsicle sticks, a mold, and paper clay, another frame. Now, this particular mold I bought across the pond, overseas, and if you can't find this mold, then just private message me on Facebook and I will send you the link to the store. On Queen's Craft Fair, they do have some other molds that are long and thin that are just as pretty if you want to use those. When you order from overseas or across the pond, it does take 3 weeks, maybe a month, for you to get the product that you ordered. So you have to have patience, or you have to know in advance what you want to do. Now I'm just going to put my paper clay away. I'm going to pause the video because the items that I put in the oven are done, so we can continue to work, so I can set up and we can continue to work on my frame that I'm going to make for my little ghost mouse. Okay, so this is what happened. The last time that I was taping all of this, I was turning on and off the camera so many times that I thought I turned on the camera, and I continued making the entire frame that you saw, but nothing was taping. So I guess I put it on pause. I don't know what I did. So I recreated the scene as best I could so that I could show you how I got from this point to this point. And hopefully you can see that. Yes, you can. And I just wanted to show you how pretty it looks as a picture frame. Now, of course, there's no glass in there. Or I am also trying to do, like I told you, for my little spooky ghost mouse, a mirror, because she's going to be in an old abandoned house. Now you really can't see very well. It's not really an exact mirror, but it's close enough. I mean, you can see the reflection of my finger in there. If I had a regular mirror the size that I wanted, I would have used a regular mirror and incorporated it with the polymer clay. But since I didn't have that, we're going to try to make one, and I will try to do a tutorial on how I figured this out, because this and adding the resin, I have found that the resin heats up, so you have to be careful. It's a little bit of a procedure to do, but it's not hard. But before I show you, I'd like to make sure I know what I'm doing really well. So, okay, here is where we left off. Now, another thing I did want to talk to you about before I continue is I have both the white and the black liquid polymer clay from Sculpey, and I did mention that I use Fimo transparent or translucent just because I happen to like Fimo's product better on the translucent. It's just a personal preference, and this is also going to be a personal preference. I seem to find that the black Sculpey, the black liquid Sculpey, is a little bit more flexible after you bake it. I think the white rips or tears more. See here, you can do this without it ripping, and sometimes the white, maybe it's because it's a little chalkier, I don't know, but this is just what I found. Again, you might find something totally different, and that's okay. Whatever you figure out that you have, or what works for you. Okay, so my frame is baked, and so are my little pieces. Now, I've been making more of these molds and trying to get all the pieces I needed, but I believe these were the two that I filled on camera the last time while I was talking and not taping, and I just wanted to show you how easy it is to get them out. Now, when you take them out of the oven, after 15 minutes in the oven at 275, you leave them on the side for about, I would say, I don't know, 15 minutes to a half hour. And then this is still going to be hot. So be careful. Use an oven mitt. Bring it over to your sink and start pouring cold water on the mold in the back. And that's not to get these out. These are going to fly out. But what it helps is if you rub gently, it starts to get any of the mistakes that you made or over poured or dripped off of the silicone mold. It works really well, but I also have to tell you, in places where things are the stem, like right here, is very, very tiny, be careful, because I can't tell you how many times I rubbed trying to get off the liquid polymer clay that spilled onto the top here, and I ripped out these little pieces. They just ripped because the stem that attaches to the main body of this decorative piece was very, very thin. But you live and learn. So all you have to do is bend your mold, and the piece comes out very, very easy. And this is what you get. Very pretty. Same with this. You see, oh, did a piece fall out of here? Yeah, a little piece came out of there. See, a little piece just came out of here because I must have manhandled it a little too much. This little tip, but I'm not planning on using this piece right now, so that's okay. I'm not going to worry about it. But they come out very, very easily. See, this little area here, it's very thin. It came off right over here. Okay, so let me put my mold aside so I have more room. And now, do not remove the frame off of the clay tile. Not yet. Just let it sit there for a little bit, because we are going to super glue these pieces onto here. I'm going to move this over a little bit more so we all get into the center. Okay. Now, what I do is I take a little piece of the tissue, the paper towel, and I put a little bit of the super glue, this is gel, right on the paper towel. It doesn't dry that quickly, and because once I super glue this piece down to here, it is impossible to remove it without it ripping, breaking, making an absolute mess. So let me see what my prototype, let me bring my prototype. Okay, I used this piece right here, which in your mold is this one. I used that on the top. So I am going to place it with my finger, well, of course with my finger, right where I want it. Line it up. Make sure you have it exactly the way you want it, because like I said, once this is glued down, you can't move it. I lift up a little corner of it. Take a little bit of the super glue and put it right underneath on the frame or on the decorative piece itself. That doesn't matter which side, which way you put it. All the while trying not to get your hands into the glue, because the only thing that it sticks better on besides these two pieces of polymer clay are your fingers. And then just hold it down for a second just so it grabs. And that's on. See, that's not moving, that's on. Now, and here's where sometimes it gets a little technical, because whatever you do on one side, you have to make sure you do on the other. So I like it when a little of the piece of the decorative mold sort of hangs off the side. So I am just going to take a little of it. Maybe on this one, I'll just put it on the frame. You don't need a lot of the super glue. It really does stick. And you just press it and hold it down for a second and make sure your fingers don't get involved. Same thing over here. Now this side, because I put this side down first, it doesn't matter what side you put down first. It really doesn't. It's just easier for me because I'm right-handed to try to line up what I did over here on this side so I can see. If I did it backwards, if I did this side first, my hand would be in the way. So I wouldn't be able to see exactly what I did. Now there was a little of, okay, I left a little where the frame and this, I left a little hole there, so I thought that would add some interest. And every time you do this, you'll find you'll do something different. Now, you'll see right away that this side sticks out more than this side. So I don't even know if I can fix that, but we'll try. Take a little of the glue. Don't get stuck. Okay. Put it right under there and try to move this piece over just a tad more, just so that they both look the same. See, I'm already sticking, and that looks a little better. Okay, so they're even. Now I used this piece right here, which is this one, the second one down. So I've used this first, and then I use this piece, and I'm going to put that, because I like that, on the bottom. Now with ovals, you have to, even though they're rounder figures, you have to try to still go in a straight line. So it looks like, I don't want to get my head in the way, but I think that's pretty straight. Okay. Alrighty, eye it, press it down. And again, you just repeat with the sides. Now, if you get your fingers stuck with super glue on them, I use acetone, although I've heard vegetable oil does the trick also. Now this is tearing, okay? If it was white, I think it would tear a lot more, but I'm just going to add a little bit of super glue down there, in there, just to hold it down so it doesn't tear all the way. And if it tears all the way, that's okay. I'm going to show you a way to fix that too. And now I have to do this side. Come over here so I can hold you down. Okay, a little glue. Fingers are getting a little sticky. And hopefully we're going to get it right. Okay. That's down there. So, see, now that tore all the way, but because it did, I was able to move it up a little bit more. Just going to press it down with the back of my wooden tool here. Wipe off the glue. Okay. So now we have this entire area to figure it out. And I was looking at all my pieces, and in the mold, you don't have to use the whole piece when you mold it. You can, see, I can take this piece right here, which is a whole piece, and it cuts so easy, just like that. And I could use any one of these pieces. I could use the center for something. It's sort of like a fleur de lis there, if I said that right. This always reminds me of the top of wrought iron fences. I can put these pieces that I just cut off whichever ones they were. I don't even remember anymore. Okay, but what I think I'm going to do was, or is, I took this piece and this piece from this mold, and the little tips fell off, but that's okay because I'm just going to put it down like that. I just want to see how that looks. I think that's what I was decided to do. You have all these little pieces going all which ways here. Okay, so this one is that one. This one is, oops, this one is this one. Okay, and then this one and this one are the same. But see, this little tip came off, so I can't really use, if I want to be, oh, you could also just pull them off with your fingers. So I think this looks good. It's a little different from this one. It's a little bit different, but I think it's fine. We're going to go with this. It's a little bit firmer. Or let me just see. Maybe. You can play around. You can have a lot of fun playing around. And I can always add other things. Like on this one right here, what I was doing was I took half pearls and just glued them down in a couple of places. So I may go, can't make up my mind, and it doesn't really matter. Can I put more than just, let's get really ornate. That might be a little too much. So if I do this and this, how does that look? Let me just try that. Put it up there. You know what? I think I'll go with that. I think I will go with that. So if I'm running out of glue on the little sheet of paper, I'll just shake it up. That's what the instructions say to do. We do try to follow instructions. Put a little more dab of super glue down there. And just put just a little bit, little bits of it. See, now that's already holding. So I guess it's going to go right there. It's amazing how quick this stuff grabs when it's polymer clay to polymer clay. All right, we're going to have this one. Let's see if we can line up the bottom at least and the top. Not bad. Whoa. There you go. Okay. That doesn't look too bad. Hold on. We're going to, I might just need to go in a little bit more. Yeah. Okay. Now you have your frame or your basis for a frame, and things are starting to get sticky here, so I'm sticking to everything. Again, the choice is yours. Whatever pieces you want to use, cut up, go ahead and have fun. You can make lots of these different, just keep molding them, and then you have all sorts of pieces. I've also used these to make furniture, little mini furniture, dollhouse size furniture, I would guess. I don't usually work in a scale because I'm working with mice, but if I was trying to build furniture for a dollhouse, I could use pieces of this to do the dollhouse with. Okay, now this is this ripping? Yes, now maybe it's ripping a little bit. Okay. If it's ripping, it's fine. It's not to be concerned because you're not to be concerned because you can always put a little dab of super glue on it and that'll keep it together very quickly. Just press for a few seconds and they're together. Okay, let me get a paper towel just so I can wipe this off a little bit. Oops, and then I pulled it right out. Okay. Now, I don't know if this was in the part that was missing or not, but if at the end, when this super glue dries, all I do is take my X-Acto knife and scrape it off, and it comes right off of the metal very easily. Sometimes I even take the glue and I put it right on my clay tile, and then I just scrape it off with my clay scraper. Okay, we're going to get this out of the way so it doesn't start gluing me someplace else. Okay. Now, on this one, like I told you, I put some of these half pearls down. So I'm going to try, maybe I should put one or two just to show you. Oh, those are real tiny. I wanted the bigger ones. Okay, just take a few of the bigger ones. Little tiny ones I don't need. So let's try to get them back in. Where did they come from? This side? Okay. And you could use the real tiny ones too if you wanted, but I have something else that I can show you that you can use. And I might want them to go right here and right here. So now if you didn't want to use this glue, I totally understand. PVA glue would work. It would just take a little bit longer to dry. So you use whatever glue you would like to. Now I'm using a tool called a pick-me-up. It sort of has this little stuff that's a little tacky on the tip. And then I also put I don't even know what this is called. I guess this is stuff we use on the walls to put up projects on school so it doesn't stick to the walls, but it holds it. Okay, so I put the little pearl right in the tip, and then I just press it down. Do the same thing with the other side. And you put a little bit more, and hopefully I'm in the same area because I didn't even check. Now I see I'm offline there. But again, this is not one I'm going to use because I already have this one going. Okay, now this is liquid pearls. And the only thing about this is you have to let it dry. Hopefully this one is going to come out easy and it didn't dry up. Okay. So you could also decorate this with the liquid pearls. Now, all of these colors I am going to be gessoing in black. So if you have liquid pearls in pink, yellow, it doesn't matter because everything is going to get gessoed. But you could do dots wherever you want to do dots. You can put little dots with this stuff. And sometimes you have to come back and just go over the dot to make it look more like a dot, not just a, I don't know, just a blob. Okay, so you can do that if you wanted to. You could put more pearls all around. You could use, I was even thinking, I had this great idea and I wanted to show you this mold. This is another one of the molds that I got overseas. I have this mold and I used some liquid polymer clay in this mold, and this is how it came out. Hopefully you'll be able to see how pretty this is. And you could even use those small paper flowers or roses and decorate your frame that way. But for now, as I just showed you, I'm not going to continue working on this one because it takes a little while for the liquid pearls to dry. So I'm just going to move this out of the way because I do want to show you or talk to you about what I'm going to do with this one. So let's just move all this aside so that we have some room to work. Oh, okay, I found it. When you're done decorating it, when you're done decorating this the way you want to, and the reason why I said to leave it here was because you can glue things on it much easier. You just put your clay blade underneath, goes right underneath, and there comes your frame. So your frame comes right off. Okay, so that's real easy to do, but it's much easier to decorate it when there is when it's stuck to something, because then you don't want to have to deal with the frame moving, the decorative piece moving, gluing and using the super glue, because you really don't want to glue your fingers, or you try to avoid that, oops, sorry, as much as possible. Okay, so I believe I decided, oh, sorry, another step. Okay, so you finished decorating your frame. Everything is dried. You're all ready. Now I would gesso this. So it doesn't matter if you want to use black gesso, white gesso, but one of the things that I try to do with the gesso, and I'll show you this, is I try to make sure that the connection between the decorative pieces and the polymer clay really has a nice glob of, not a glob, but the paint is definitely in wherever the polymer clay and the liquid polymer clay, this needed to be glued down some more, okay, wherever they meet. Because the reason for that is I want the decorative pieces to look like they belong to the frame, not that someone just came and glued it on. I almost want to have it look like someone carved it out of the frame. And if there's like a big if there's like a line or a separation between them, it doesn't look as nice. So I take my time when I'm doing this. And as you can see, this is why I always have paint all over the place. You just want to make sure that, and I'm tapping it. I'm not just painting it like this. I'm tapping it because I do want to get some paint in that crevice or that line between the liquid decorative pieces, the liquid polymer clay decorative pieces, and the polymer clay. Okay, so I showed you that. Now, I'm thinking that I might want this, even though my mouse is going to be white and gray because she's a ghost mouse, I think I still want this to be on the gold side. There's a lot of different ways, like I said before, that I could do this. I can put the gold leaf glue on this and gold leaf it, but it's going to be a real pain trying to get in all the crevices with the leaf. Not something this small can be a little bit difficult. I could also use the wax, and I showed you how to use the wax before, but I'm going to use Luminaire, and I have Sunset Gold, and this color is sort of a dark, I don't know if I would say reddish gold, but maybe it is. It's not pink gold. It's more of like a sunset dark gold. Now what I do, because I want to create some texture, I don't know if you can see it on this. This again is not just brushed on. Again, I'm doing the dabbing. And I didn't paint this red. I know, I told you about how I usually paint, if I'm doing gold, I do it in red, or sometimes I just leave it in black. I like to have dark colors under my metallics because I just think it makes the metallics look richer. And I'm going for a very rich, ornate look because even though it is a ghosty mouse, I wanted to show that she was either living, I'm not sure if I'm going to make it a castle or a really nice manor house type look. It's just going to be the corner. I'm not doing the whole house. That would take me forever and a day. But so I just tap. And if I don't like the color that this came out, I mean, I'm probably going to put quite a few, I could put different layers of gold paint on top of this. I could put another layer of this color. I can put another layer or a different gold. You can mix and match. But one of the things is, even though I'm going to antique this, I want the whole piece to be gold to begin with. I want a solid color of gold to begin with. And of course, what you do on the front, because some of these pieces are hanging out off the side, you have to make sure that you get on the underneath. Now, I'm going to also paint this part, this rim, but I have to lay it down, so I'm not going to paint it just now. Right now, I'm just painting the pieces of the liquid polymer clay mold that are hanging off. I like the backs to be just as neat as the fronts. And make sure you remember about the inside rim, because if you're going to do a mirror, the inside rim is going to be reflected in the mirror, even if it's one of those fake mirrors that I'm trying to accomplish. Okay, so now you just have to wait for the paint to dry. And I am liking the richness of this tone. I am going to be adding antiquing to this because it has to be old, but I do like how rich it is. Now, the mouse is probably going to be holding a candlestick, so I'm probably going to be sculpting that in polymer clay also, and the candle. And this is a good gold, I think, to use for an old candlestick. I'm almost afraid to pause the video because I don't want to lose this, because I really don't want to do this again. But we can wait for that to dry. I think that's going to look good. So after you finish decorating it, you put on a coat of gesso, whatever color you want to use. If you're not using a metallic, you can go straight to the color that you would like to use for the finished piece. When I'm painting something, I don't usually like to just leave it in one color of paint. I like to add some darkening to it and then maybe bringing out the highlights. I may use some of the wax to just rub the wax, the vanilla smeller wax that I was showing you before, just to go over and bring out some highlights. I like making it more than just one color, because just one color doesn't give it life. When you're using more than one color, the piece starts to become more lively, more realistic, more lifelike. So I'm going to let this dry. I don't know if you want, maybe you want to see me try to antique it. What I'll do is I will try to put this video on pause. Hopefully I don't mess it up. And I'll come back in a little while when this is dry. Oh, just so you know, one of the reasons why I don't use my heat gun to dry this is all polymer clay. And if polymer clay goes in extreme heat, it could make it soft again, and I really don't want this soft again. I know if I keep going like this, I'm not going to make any one particular part get too warm enough to melt, but normally I just wait for it to dry. I do something else, do another piece, maybe even go and clean my hands or clean my brush properly. But I'm just going to pause this now, and hopefully this will dry in a little bit. Okay, so it dried enough for me, and I decided I wanted to try something a little different. So I got out my old set of watercolors. And when I say old, I mean old. And these are Grumbacher. I don't even know if they still sell them. This is stuff that I used when I was in high school. And I decided to see how the watercolors would look, because I told you that I do like to have different tones in it to make it look more alive. So I'm just going to use these for the shadowing effects. And the opposite, or the complementary color of gold, is violet. So I'm just mixing a little blue with my violet and see if I can get in there and make it look like it's a little bit old. Now, because they're watercolors, I know that they're not going to penetrate these, because this, I believe, is an acrylic. Yes, metallic acrylic. So they will dry on here, but I'm going to probably have to put a top coat to make sure, like a varnish, something to that effect. Could use maybe a little matte Mod Podge or something else, I'm not sure. Just to give this a little bit more color. And I think you should take out things that you have, try it out, see if they work. With the watercolors, the worst that could happen is I just wash them off. Just like that. With your paintbrush, you can wash them off. And a paper towel. And I could paint over it again if it doesn't come out the way I want. But by using just little different colors here, the naked eye would probably not stand there and stare and say, oh, she put purple and blue, but it just purple over here, blue over here, but it gives it a little bit more life to me. Now that's enough with the darks. Just trying to like get in where darks would be or dirt would have gathered. And I could do this with regular acrylic paint. It doesn't have to be watercolor. I just have these watercolors, and I decided I wanted to try them on this project. I'm going to use a little red. I'm just dabbing color around. If it's too much, put a little water on my brush. It'll come off. Just to give it an old tarnish. Maybe some green too. Green would look pretty. When things get a little tarnished and old. Most of the time I do a lot of the antiquing with raw umber acrylic, but this one I just wanted to add a little bit more color to. You probably won't even see half of it now that I'm going to add the highlights to it, but it just makes it feel richer to me. Now I don't know if you can see what I've been doing. You can see some different tones of the colors there. They're a little bit more different in real life, but you get the idea. You could even try, if you have some inks, maybe you want to try some alcohol ink or even pigment ink if you have that. The worst that can happen at this stage of the game is that it totally gets messed up. So what do? You take your gesso and you wait for everything to dry, you re-gesso it, and you're back to square one, and you learn something. That's basically really that's the worst that could possibly happen with this. So I was talking about those waxes before. And I have also, I don't have a lot of colors. I have the vintage gold. I have the brushed iron. I think I have another, one other goldish color. And then this one I also have is Opal Magic Vintage Silk. And it's a very, it's sort of a silvery whitish gold color. And they have applicators that you could use for this. I just use my fingers. Maybe put a little on top. Just try to highlight the areas that are on top. Again, I don't know if it's going to work. I don't know if it's going to stay on here on the paint. But if it doesn't, I have different paints, different gold paints of the luminaires. And I told you, I don't know if you saw in the other video, I paint a lot of my fabric. When I buy ribbon and it's not the right color, but I buy it because I love the texture, I will paint it, especially if it's going on something that basically is not moving. If it's an outfit or a trim and it's not really being moved around, I'll paint it. If it's got the texture I want, I have no problem in painting it. Okay, so I added, I think you could see it over here, a little vintage silk here and there. And now this is anything but one solid color, and I think it makes it a more interesting piece when it'll be hanging up with a mirror for my little mousie to be looking into it. And if you don't want to use it as a mirror, again, you could always take a picture. Now you saw it when it was black and I did this, but now you take a picture. And if I was using this frame for this picture, I would definitely add a little bit more red in areas, red tones, because there is red in the picture. Some bright spots of red in the eyes of the skull, her hat brim, and in her shawl. So I would add a little bit more of a reddish tone around the area, just so that it melds. It gives it more of a gel, a better appearance. It matches. Okay, so all right, now to finish this, I'm going to make this a mirror, so I'm going to be gluing this back to here, and when I finish using my UV resin and hardening it, and everything is done like I did with this one, when it's all finished, I will then paint the back. And I will paint the back probably whatever color I painted the frame. So this will probably be gold. I like to have the backs finished as much as the fronts, and then you can also sign the back, which I haven't done here. Now if you're using this in a doll's house, how you would get it up on the wall, I guess you can glue it if you want, you could probably tape it up there. That might not hold, but if you wanted to tape it just to make sure you liked it in that position, that would be a good idea also. So you finish your frame any which way you want. The other tip I can give you is that at the beginning of this video I showed you with the oval that I made 55, 50, 45, and 40% sizes of this oval. So when I cut this shape out, I used either the 55, I don't remember right now, but I used either this was 55, the outside of the frame was 55. I believe I used the 50 because you want to not go all the way to the edge. You want to go a little bit inside of the edge. So you use that cutout to cut this out. So it just gives you a little bit of depth to your frame, just like with this one. You can see it. This piece here that the mirror is on, this was using the die cuts. So I used the nestle die cuts, the ones that come in a couple of different sizes. So I used the neck size down from this one, the outside one, just so that I can have this. And I think it just looks a little bit more professionally done. So when you look on the back, it looks just as nice as the front. And again, I am going to be working on trying to figure out this UV resin and how to use it, because on a shiny surface like aluminum foil, it will peel right up after you use your flashlight or the UV light to cure it. All of a sudden it comes right back up, and that was a little confusing to me. So I have to figure out a way. This one stays. This one's not coming out, but I just kept on putting more and more layers of resin once it was in here, so it sort of attached itself to the sides of the inside of the frame. So I really have to figure out the right way. And also, if you're trying to, keep saying also, I'm sorry. If you're trying to make a mirror and you just use aluminum foil, it's not going to work, because I could not get the foil on top of a piece of cardboard where it was totally flat without any wrinkles. This, I don't know if you could see it, there is a little wrinkle in here that goes up. This wasn't done on tin foil, this was done on something else, but even still that wrinkled. So I'm still trying to figure out exactly how to use this resin and how to back it. When I did it on this one, the problem I was having with this one was a lot of little air bubbles, and I couldn't figure out, because I've seen sometimes with regular 2-part epoxy, they take a flame and go over it and all the air bubbles pop. Well, that didn't work with this. I wasn't exactly sure I was supposed to be putting flame near UV resin, but I did try it. It didn't work. So I have to do some more experimentation. Although I am pleased with the way this one came out, I'd like to be able to know that I can get consistently good results. Okay, so here is my little mirrored frame. I'm going to be working on this just to try just a little bit more, and then of course the mirror. And I also have to put a finishing coat of something on top of it because of the watercolor that I used. It's probably going to be a pretty much matte finish because I don't want it shiny. But now I'm going to consider this as done.
I hope I've inspired you to make some of your own mini frames for whatever project you need them for. Whether you're using cardboard, waffle boxes, coffee stirrers, paper clay, polymer clay, whatever medium you choose to use, epoxy, UV resin, 2-part epoxy resin. There's so many things out there that you can use to create your own frames with. I'd like to thank Ara for all of the inspiration, Bentley House Minis. Go look at her channel. She has a ton of really very interesting how-to videos on there. Heather Tracy at Thicketworks, another fave of mine. Nikki and Crystal, Nikki at DisorganizedCrafters, Crystal at RusticInkAngel Designs. Those ladies have an online store called Queen's Craft Fair that has a lot of the Prima molds and also the two-part epoxy resin that you mix together, aluminite. Remember that if you put my name in the comments on Polymer Clay Express, you'll get 10% off, whether it's liquid polymer clay or regular polymer clay, or even any of the tools that they have, the clay blades. Go and look around the store, another very interesting place. So have fun creating beauty.